Gonna pour some juice.
Please do. Please do. Nice. I need to bring my taster here because this keeps coffee too warm again. I'm gonna complain about it again.
I don't know.
Is it better than last time?
I think it's better than the last time, making progress.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't know if folks have watched the last episode, but...
Last episode, the drip was a little rough.
It's a little rusty.
Yeah. But we're dialing it in.
One brew at a time.
I'm not going to be able to drink it for the rest of... I'm going to take my first sip at the end of the podcast.
Just need one of these glasses. My water glass.
Oh.
Gotta hydrate. Stay hydrated.
It is scorching. Scorching.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Good. You know, it's a cup of Joe. I mean, it's a good cup of coffee.
Obviously,
that's
you guys,
for sure.
we're not pleased. Like, if you've been around the podcast, you know what it sounds like when there's something tasty brewing.
Yeah.
Not to say that this isn't great, probably. Well,
yeah.
I haven't even tasted it, so I don't know. But
one day, like, because we almost every single time we record, we have the same response. Like, I could have been tweaked. Yeah, you know, it's when is that going to be a meme?
Dude, I feel like anybody, like, I guess not everybody in, like, who's like a coffee enthusiast. Maybe it's just us, where it's always like, you know, I didn't breathe right when I was pouring or something.
Yeah.
I need to practice my breathing exercises.
Oh, man.
Which, I mean, I guess just rolls right into the episode of, like, the brewing coffee. How do you buy coffee?
Yeah. Like, not the cup of coffee, but the actual beans.
Yeah. I'm curious, because like, I'm always curious when you're in the industry, it's hard to think as if you're not.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Like I honestly, I have no idea how normal people who are, by normal, I mean you haven't sold your soul to the coffee gods.
Yeah.
And that's not your entire life.
Yeah.
Normal, hey, you like coffee, you go, I don't even know where you go, actually. But
right.
How do people even do that? Like,
I'm trying to, like, take it back and think, like,
yeah, how did
before I was in coffee, like, where did I go? And honestly, I lived in Nashville for a while, and, like, outside of, like, downtown Nashville, so I was kind of, like, in the country, in the woods. The closest store we had, I mean, I was pretty broke at that point. I couldn't even, like, find gas money to go to Walmart most of the times. So the closest store I could go to was a Dollar General. And, dude, I don't even know how I made that decision. Like, why did I always get 8 o'clock coffee? I mean, I did, dude. McCafe had some dope branding. I mean, the Arches got me a couple of times, but most of the time...
Golden Arches. It's like, so there's a pot of gold somewhere in there.
Yeah, but most of the time it was like 8 o'clock coffee, and I don't know. The information, I'm trying to remember, like, I did not understand what any of it meant, but I felt like the information kind of intrigued me to try something different when I had some weird things. I remember noticing, like, flavor notes. I don't even remember if flavor notes were on bags back in the day. That's a fairly new thing too. Like, that helps people decide. Now it's like Hagen, I think Hagen Roasting Company is a local grocery store here. Hagen's Roasting Company also has, like, flavor notes on their bag. I feel like everybody does that now. So I don't know. That helps a lot, I would say, for most folks. And I'm strictly talking about grocery store, like you're going to the grocery store, or
But, I don't know. Maybe I'm just skeptical, but I'm like, if you're not in coffee, how do you know? Like, are you
Right.
actually looking at the notes?
right. And what if there's like a bunch of different roasting companies with the same notes? Then
And I feel like honestly, most coffee bags, like at the grocery store, most, not all, but most will have classic chocolatey, caramel. Some will say smoky, roasty, bold.
yeah.
Like, does that even help people buy a coffee? Or are they not looking for that? Or are people like usually just like, hey, I've been getting this. You know, one day like somebody made them a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, where'd you get that? Oh, it's just like Trader Joe's special. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Whatever.
yeah.
And it's like, okay, cool. So I'm just going to buy Trader Joe's special.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually, speaking of Trader Joe's, like that's when I did start noticing origin. Like that was a big one for me. I remember that because my friend also would hype Trader Joe's coffee up a lot. So I guess it maybe didn't start with looking at origin. It started with my friend telling me about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just intrigued because it also like, I mean, my other background of like working with cameras,
Right. Yeah.
like you just bought a new camera, which is super exciting. The R6, Canon R6, it slaps.
Mm-hmm.
It spinks.
It's a good piece of equipment. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I get how we like buy cameras, but I'm like for example, I was shooting some stuff today in Fairhaven.
Mm-hmm.
Ran into a lady at the park who was like, "Oh, cool, nice camera," you know. And she was talking about how she bought a Rebel T7i.
Classic.
I'm like, how do you make your buying decisions? Like, to be honest, remember back when you were just getting into cameras,
Yes.
the biggest thing you look for is megapixels.
Yes.
You know, like, oh, how many megapixels? 20? Ah, dude, that one has 24. Must be better.
Yes.
It was like a marketing scam.
For sure. Because I grew up like Sony. Because our dad was a big Sony guy. He pushed Sony hard. Like that was like a brand. We had Sony boom boxes, dude. Sony VHS. Like Sony was the brand. Japanese. Like it's gonna be good quality.
Yeah.
So I had a Sony Cybershot that I bought in like, you know. Sorry, this is turning into like a gear podcast, but I'll make a point later down the road. So I bought that, but I think what actually got me to switch to Canon is ads. I'm not joking. Like his ads.
That was such a big plot twist. I just was not expecting that. Oh,
dude,
God.
that was the beginnings of like using a computer.
Fair enough.
And because my first Canon was not digital, it was a film Rebel. It was when they renewed their film cameras, and they had like the similar body to the current like Canon Rebels, but it was a film one. And that's when, I had that and that long zoom lens, and that's when I've never switched back.
Yeah. Interesting.
So I would say ads work. Word of mouth is still a big attribute.
Which word of mouth also kind of goes to a thought that I just had was about like influencers. Now it's a thing for influencers to make coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Like Emma Chamberlain, I don't know if you know her. She's like 10 mil on YouTube. Just like drops her own coffee line, like multiple origins and blends.
Yeah.
It's bonkers. Peter McKinnon.
Yeah.
Classic.
That's classic.
Most people probably know him on this podcast. Like, actually, I really want to try his Golden Hour blend.
Isn't that the coffee that Ryan Hamilton just like boasts about?
I don't know. Maybe.
Was it it?
I think
or was it Brandon?
I don't know.
One of the dudes. Yeah.
But it's so trendy now to release a coffee line, and because all these people have really big audiences, a lot of these people are just like, okay, Emma Chamberlain or whatever somebody said, they just like, you've been following them for example, I've been following Peter before he was famous. I remember him at 25,000 subscribers. I was a subscriber back then. I was back then. I was in the OG. This for the records. I'm telling you guys. But yeah, and then when they drop something like this, of course you're gonna go buy it. You love the person, and I love that. Like you want to support the creator and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious if that also plays a part, which is kind of like word of mouth.
Yeah, 'cause I think like online stuff has really changed word of mouth. Because word of mouth used to be like literally like I come up to you and be like, dude, I bought this, like you should get it too. But I think nowadays it's also like how we communicate has changed a lot. So therefore like we're sharing, instead of like telling you something like, oh, check this out, I'll send you a link. That would still be considered word of mouth. So like you're right. I would say like influencer market is the new word of mouth. Yeah. And you build trust with people in a way different level. Like yes, we've talked to like Alex Wallace on the phone, like, you know what I mean? And stuff like that. But it's also different when you see this person post, you see these people that are constantly like creating content, and that consistency actually creates trust. Or a podcast. That's a big one. Like for me, like, I mean, one of the podcasts I listen to a lot is Relevant Podcast. And like, you go away with the classic, like, man, I feel like I know these people. Like, I feel like I'm hanging out with them.
Yeah, and especially if they fit your vibe.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that, you know, at least for me, like, I'm not trying to trick somebody. A lot of these people are not trying to trick you into buying something. It's more like, dude, this is a good coffee. It's so good that I want you to enjoy this.
Right.
And that's why I'm sharing about it.
Yeah.
Which you just had an experience. One of your friends, literally word of mouth, bought you some coffee.
Yeah. A friend of mine, like, was a regular at Makeworth, became friends. She traveled back to her home state, to Colorado, stopped by Corvus, and picked up some incredible coffee and brought it back to me. And it was like a surprise. I had no idea it was coming. I've never purchased Corvus before. I've had it because you've had it at the house one time, and that's about it. And when she brought it back, I mean, gosh, like that's one of my favorite things. Like I love, it's almost like a souvenir, you know what I mean? Like classic magnet for the fridge. Oh, yeah. Like, dude, just a little bag, a baggie, doesn't have to be huge, something small or whatever. Like, dude, yes.
Yeah. Honestly, I think I love like having friends that are kind of nerdy about coffee, because then like what gets me excited is like when I taste a really spectacular coffee, or I'm, you know, out of town somewhere like on the East Coast or somewhere else, and I buy a bag of coffee or have a great coffee. My first thought is like either, ooh, I want to share this with Sergi, I'm going to leave him a little bit, or ooh, I'm going to send this to my buddy who, you know, also loves coffee and nerds out about it. And just having that, it's like excitement, like, oh man, I tasted something good, I want to share this with somebody.
For sure.
And like that's just been so fun actually, and just be like hearing their thoughts and just like dropping off a little treat, you know, and tasting coffees. I don't know, it's fun.
I think also like, yes, the whole friends like outside of the industry sharing coffee with you, especially if like you know, two friends who are not baristas, who don't kind of drink coffee as a profession to a degree. I know that sounds kind of weird, like we professionally drink coffee, but that's not what I'm saying. Like I'm like thinking of like our sister or like Nathan, like folks like that who travel and bring back coffee. Yeah. That means to me a lot. Like, you know what I mean? Because this shows intentionality, like, oh, they actually know this about me. Or especially if they hit like, I mean, a certain processing method, they're like, oh, dude, this guy, he's a natural. He likes natural. Like, I have a friend who loves naturals. I'm going to bring this natural back. Or, you know, I have a friend who loves and only drinks Pacamares. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. There's people like that out there.
If you're that guy, I want to talk to you. I want to have you on the podcast if you just like the Pacamara varietal.
But I also think, like, within that, there's so much range now in specialty coffee and how you can like purchase coffee for yourself or as a gift. Like you can go to Proud Mary and get something that's like, I don't know what, in the $18 range, but you can also pick up something for like $30+ range.
Yeah, like a specialty wine almost. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's great. So like receiving those kind of gifts with intentionality is awesome. But then if, I don't know if we can just like turn that around and say, what if you have friends in the industry? Like one of the first ones that comes to my mind is like, why do I buy Social Grounds coffee? I'm just checking in on Jason. How's he doing? Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? That's literally my check-in. I'll buy a bag just to see like what's he changing in his roast curve, because I know the coffee so well. I work there and I know Jason. You know what I mean?
That's kind of funny because that's how I feel with like maybe buying coffee from Woods almost.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, I used to work there. That's my stomping grounds. Like I'm curious. Like what are you up to? What are you brewing up? You know what's going on? And it's fun. That being said, like how do you buy coffee now?
Yeah, owning, like doing this mirror thing together, dude, has really changed my buying habits. Like,
do you only drink mirror coffee?
No, I have 10 bags of coffee at home. Like I threw one away and I was sad about it. Like I also have a pile of coffee that I use just for like making videos. Yeah. Sorry, I'm giving my tricks away. Like burst seasoning, or it's like, man, trying to get the perfect flow rate. Yeah, and it's like, practice, for sure. But yeah, so I think some of the most memorable purchases I've recently made were because like you and I are roasting a coffee that I want to see how other people have roasted, like the Desatola Juke.
That's been fun.
Yeah, because that's a super rare coffee and there's only one other roasting company other else than us that has that coffee. Yeah. That was one of the first things I did is I bought that bag from that company to see and compare, like, you know, because especially because they roasted it a little darker. I wanted to see how that's going to taste without doing that ourselves. You know what I mean? So that was a big one for sure. What about you?
Yeah, that's fun. Okay.
Stumped.
Yeah. Stumped. It's like it's like X Factor or like Fear Factor, like when you get thrown in like a bathtub of snakes and you're out of there in like 20 seconds.
No, it's too much.
Yeah.
We need the classic much. Like zoom.
Yeah. I think I usually like to go with, you know, unfortunately to say, like I have like a handful of roasting companies that I absolutely love because I've been drinking their coffee for so long.
Right.
And I'm always checking up on their new stuff. And I'm like, ooh, okay, cool. I want to get that, you know? So that's kind of been, unfortunately, kind of how I've been drinking coffee. But also, you know, I do quite a bit of traveling. Of course, this past year has made that a little rough. But for example, like I'm going to San Francisco not tomorrow, but next week on a road trip. It's for work related. But I'm excited because I can stop by Case down in Oregon. I can hit, you know, Redding, maybe hit Theory, hit some San Franciscan shops. Usually I love, if I'm in a new city or another city outside of Bellingham, first thing I do is I find a great cafe. And if my cafe experience is tasty, is amazing, there's a good chance that'll lure me into buying a bag. Yeah. Like I remember my first experience at St. Frank's Coffee in San Francisco. I've never heard of them before then. I went in, had just like a really spectacular experience. And since then, I've bought a bag that visit. I bought a bag later online. And then I bought a bag from them again on my last visit to San Francisco.
For sure.
So some of it is like very sentimental. Maybe I have had an experience with them firsthand.
Yeah. And you also shared those coffees with me because I've never heard or had St. Frank's if it wasn't for you. So there's like a circle and all of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
and that's also people sharing coffee with you.
Yeah, exactly. It opens that up so you're able to experience more. I think the other thing is also a few coffees that I bought was simply because of importing company. And I know that's very, very niche.
That is
super niche. I don't know how many people like choose a coffee because it was imported by Red Fox or imported by Catalyst.
Yeah.
But owning a roasting company has, once again, changed my mindset on how I view coffee even more. It's like I'm caring more and more about the producer. So when I saw that Gold Mountain imported some of these coffees for Trailhead, I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard or bought Trailhead if it wasn't for Gold Mountain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That kind of ties in for me also, is like knowing that, hey, not just importing, but also noticing like producers, specific producers and origins. Like there have been a couple times where I'm like, ooh, I want to buy that Sadama because it's from Malia Majo and it's the coffee that we have. Kind of similar to what you said before, where I'm like, I'm curious how this roasting company, roasted this coffee and what they were able to bring out. Like, it's just interesting to me. I'm intrigued by that. And it's a great learning experience for me, maybe we're not doing something great, or maybe we did something really great,
Yeah. So I think for, once again, coffee folks, to reiterate, like the buying decision is so different than if you just drink one pot of coffee a day and you're just drinking it for the caffeine. So I'm not drawing a picture of like, man, one is better than the other. That's not the point. It's just like basically understanding the psychology behind like how we make decisions in general. Like where are we intentional? Like some people might be like super intentional about the type of, I don't know, bike pedals they buy for their mountain bike because they're into that niche, or cameras.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So stuff like that I'm just like super intrigued, especially the deeper we get into running Mir. So.
Yeah, I think actually running the coffee roasting company has actually made it even more interesting for me of buying coffees from other roasting companies.
Yeah.
Like, some people might, at least I had this assumption is that, man, if you own a coffee roasting company or if you work for one, you just like, you're drinking all the coffee you want, all this stuff. But it's like, kind of. Like, I brew our coffee regularly. I mean, we cup our coffees regularly and it's fun, and I thoroughly actually enjoy that. But I think it's even more exciting is now buying coffee from other roasting companies and just, seeing what they're doing, seeing the coffee, kind of coffees they source. Why are they doing it? And their styles and, it's made actually a lot more interesting.
Yeah, and not even roasting companies, like multi-roasters. Honestly, I wish there were more. Like that's something that I'm seeing like less and less of. Yeah. Like, and I get it, starting a roasting company may be more profitable. I get that business side of stuff, but there's nothing like going into a multi-roaster that you have a connection and a relationship established with and trust. So the coffee that they'll be serving, even if you've never heard of it, it's going to slap. Yeah. And it's going to be good, like Narrative. Like, we trust the crew at Narrative. Like, we don't have to second think their buying decision. Like, they, do all the check marks for us. So, therefore, if I see something on their shelves and I haven't heard of it, like, I'm going to have to buy it.
I will say, yes, that's a very, very good point. I will say multi-roaster shops are so enjoyable for me. I love a good roasting company. Like, that's great. I love visiting roasteries. But a multi-roaster shop is so much fun because there's always a rotating coffee. It's always, like, for example, like Narrative. Every time I'm driving in or by or near Everett, making it a priority. I need to stop by because I know there's something exotic, something fun there. And it's always different, and that's, for somebody, once again, like we're in the industry of like taste. Yeah. Like that's fun when there's something new, different all the time. And it's like a tasting experience,
Yeah. Like, dude, seeing tailor-made boxes in Nemesis just get me hyped. Just because I know the coffee's from overseas. Yeah. And to see it so close to home, like on someone's shelf in a cafe.
Or you walk into a Revolver and they have 20 different roasters.
Yeah. You're like, wait, what?
It's wild. Revolvers, honestly, the Revolvers.
Like a coffee mall.
Yeah, menu is like bonkers. Like probably one of the craziest. So cool. Any last words? Any last thoughts?
I mean, basically, I would say, like, how do you choose coffee? Like, if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, how do you choose coffee? Like, I want to know, because it's so subjective to your buying decision and how you buy everything else. Like, and within that, I would say, like, man, what was the last coffee that someone recommended? That's what I would love to hear from folks. Because I'm always intrigued, like, how do people recommend coffee? Because it's so unique. It's so relational. It's everything, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for real. Well, there you have it, folks. Boom, right there. Hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Leave a review, put some stars on there. Leave us a comment. I don't know. Do all the fun stuff. Still, regardless, thank you so much for watching. If you're on YouTube or listening to this podcast, we'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers, folks.